All right. I think we will go ahead and get started, and we'll just keep letting people in as they join us.
Oh.
So welcome everyone to our Healthy Goodbyes and Resources for the Summer. We appreciate you taking the time to join us at the end of your school year and school day. So as a reminder, for Zoom, it's always best if we can see your faces. If you can't turn on your video, we understand, but it's great to interact through videos. And if you don't feel comfortable when we're in the main breakout room or main room, be great to do it in the breakout rooms. And just make sure you have a few pieces of blank paper or a way to take notes so that you can capture your thoughts today. We will be doing some activities where you'll get to do some thinking and planning and generating some ideas. Also remember to keep your microphone muted when not talking. And you're welcome to use the chat box to ask questions or even just unmute yourself and we'll stop for a minute. We are here to help you, so don't be afraid to ask or share ideas that you have because that's the way we all learn. So I'm Donna Trujillo. I'm the Vice President of Tiered Services and Special Populations with Generation Schools Network. I previously was a director of a large school district here in Colorado. I've been a special education teacher. I'm an educational advocate, and I'm happy to be here today. Zach?
Hey, good afternoon or evening for some of you. My name is Zach, and I've been with GSN for a few years now. And before that, I was in the same big district with Donna as a director, and my specialty was health, wellness, and prevention. So I'm a big prevention guy, do a lot of things around trauma-informed schools work, restorative practices, SEL, MTSS, and all those sorts of things. Help a lot with strategic prevention. And if you're familiar with SAMHSA and the strategic prevention framework. So I like all that kind of stuff.
And Zach and I have been in the trenches as a teacher and administrator of schools. So we get the stress, and we were just talking about how this time of year is so crazy for you all. And we also have our colleague Katie, who's not on video, but will be supporting us from the backside of things. And she unmutes. That's what she's here for, to help us through if we have any technical difficulties. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about how we set up students for a successful end of the year. We are going to also discuss how we ensure supports are in place for the end of the year, but also the start of next year, even though many of us are probably not wanting to think about that. And then some ways to send off our students and provide resources for the summer. And then most importantly, how to take care of you. So we would like to take a couple minutes, about 10, to talk about roses and thorns. Every school year has roses where something great happens, and it may have been the best day you've ever experienced or something that you want to remember forever. And then there's also thorns, those things that happen outside of our control that you're like, how am I going to get through this? But guess what? You did, because you're here and it's the end of the school year. So in the breakout rooms, we want you to go in and share with each other, what were your roses this year and what were your thorns this year? This will set the stage for our discussions moving forward. So Katie's going to have you all join in groups of 3 in the breakout rooms. And Zach and I will be popping in and out.
I don't work in a school. I work in a before and after school program. I work at Boys and Girls Club. And we certainly get a lot different of like an experience than like teachers would, just because we're not with them during the school day. But something that I would consider like a thorn for me is like, we've got a couple kids that are like getting really tired with like getting close to the end of the year, and so they're pushing boundaries and like getting onto staff, and then their parents don't necessarily always help that situation. But some of our roses, like some of our like good things that we've had, would be like when like our kids want like beg their parents to stay at the club after they would be like when their parents come to try to pick them up, they'll like beg their parents to try to stay, and that's always a really good feeling. To feel like you're making a difference in doing stuff.
All right, I guess like with me, I don't work directly with the children. I manage the company. But what I could say for my roses is that having such great staff that relieves the stress and knowing that they're doing such a great job and making a difference for so many children, it's like a plus, and that makes me very happy, and that always comes out. The thorns is little things, hiccups that we get here and there. Either, sometimes we hire new people and it's not really working out, and trying to work with them, like, look, this is what we do, and this is what the company's mission statement is. And sometimes we do a little, we get a little bit backlash from that, but overall, I think that's very minimal. I think that's something that we worked really hard with, but just knowing that we have great staff, and that's such a plus, because I know they're doing a difference.
What kind of therapy do you guys do?
We do mostly speech
Okay.
therapy and early intervention,
Hmm.
meaning children that didn't qualify for speech delays qualify for language. Either they can't put the sentences together, so it's more of a classroom support as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's exactly what my wife does. She has her own business where she does that. Yeah, she loves early intervention. So she's in apraxia. That's her big specialty, is apraxia of speech.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right, I'm going to jump into the next one. Keep celebrating. This is just, we're going to go through these a little bit more detail, but we just think, it's important as we're saying goodbye, we're ending the school year, to just talk about how do you review the school year? How do you celebrate? How do you help the students develop their own skills and things that they've learned throughout the year, because they've gone through a lot of things. We want to address the fears of the end of the school year, that grief and loss that does happen with some of our students, for sure. And then end on a positive, like some of the hopes and dreams we got for the next school year. So I think the first thing we can do that is, I think, really positive to do with students is to celebrate the learning. And that happens when you celebrate the learner. And so we want to really, really be smart about this, and be cognizant of all the different learners in your classrooms. And, because it's easy to celebrate the ones that did really well, how they gained 500 points on whatever assessment it was, or something like that. But to really think about how can we celebrate every single learner in there, because there's all kinds of different learning going on in the classroom, not just reading or math skills. So really be conscious and thinking about how could we do that with our kids, so that they feel like, hey, they're celebrating me. I made some accomplishment. It might be with making friends. It might be around behaviors, learning new strategies for emotions, or any of those kind of things. So just really be thinking about that, and letting them understand that gift of struggle is a celebration. I had a teacher always do that with her kids. At the end of the year, she would, like this, I have a little gift for everybody, and nothing was in it. And she would say, this is what this year represented, was this gift of struggle. I made you work really hard, and it was hard. And you learned something from that. So that I always loved that, the gift of struggle. So think about all those neurodiverse learners, ELL students, all kinds of things. Your gifted learners, don't forget about gifted learners. How do we celebrate all learners and have that opportunity to recognize all of them? I think it's important to foster that growth mindset when we're doing things like that. It does foster that growth mindset. That growth mindset believes that you can improve your abilities. The fixed mindset means, well, I didn't achieve in school this year because I'm not good at math, right? I'm not good at writing, so I didn't do well. And you hear that from our students a lot, and that's that fixed mindset. And we want to really promote a growth mindset, that they did accomplish a lot of things and they worked hard, and let's celebrate the work and the effort they put into it. I think something that resonates with me is this concept of student autonomy. And when we're giving them more control of their learning and how they learn, I think in the end of the year celebrations, how do we let them take control of some of the celebration? Asking them, involving them in what are you proud of, those kind of things, because that autonomy, that feeling like I can own my learning and own some of this experience and what we're doing in the classroom, that leads to positive mental health. It's one of the key indicators actually of positive mental health for students and adults, actually. When we look at educators especially, one of the reasons that educators are now the most stressed out profession in the United States, one of the key things the research uncovered was lack of autonomy and lack of decision-making power in those educational environments. So, if you're a school administrator, a boss of a program, or think about that. That autonomy is a big deal, and that you do get a growth mindset when you're feeling good about yourself and feeling healthy. I think it breeds that growth mindset of where you feel like I can do anything. And you know what, I may not have been, a lot of growth in my math scores, but I worked hard and I did learn some of these things, right? So just think of those opportunities that help foster that growth mindset. Celebrating our SEL milestones. I would be remiss if we didn't touch on that, right? This is the work that I love. And I think on the prevention side, when we're getting out in front of, how we grow kids in education and give them the best experience in these environments, is talking about this learning and what we're doing in this social emotional learning realm of things. So maybe this is a way that you can help celebrate. So maybe they weren't great at math or whatever, right? And but they learned some new self-management skills. How awesome is that? Like, highlight that. Maybe they made some really responsible decisions and have them, like, when did you make a good decision? Oh, remember when I did, that was amazing, Johnny. Like some of those kiddos, there's not a lot to celebrate when it comes to just pure academics, but this is part of it. And I think this is a real important thing to help them recognize and know that, I made good friends. I was aware of the surroundings around me and some of the things that were going on. And I helped console someone. I had empathy. I, did some things to, make my friend stop crying or make them feel like they were accepted or whatever it is. That's all good social emotional milestones. So don't forget to celebrate that as well. And another one for me that I think is so important when we talk about shared risk and protective factors. There's so many risk factors out there for our youth. And one of the biggest protective factors out there is belonging and connection. We all know this. We all know as educators how big relationships are. Well, we create communities in these schools or in these learning environments, wherever you are in a therapeutic environment or whatever, we're building community with each other. And I think that's something to really also celebrate. How do you celebrate that we came together and as a community, we did whatever? The little things around the circle, that was just right. You could create something like this and celebrate what it was about your community. What were the values that you valued as a community, and celebrate them? Like, you know what? I saw this year we were all such good friends to each other, or, there's a lot of trust, and you were just good scientists. I was a middle school science teacher, so, I had to throw science stuff in there. But any way that you can do that is, what kind of community did you create, and celebrate that? All right. So this is I want you to just be able to do some thinking around this and start to create maybe a way. We're just gonna give you one tool here that I think works really well. I'm a huge advocate, and I really think circles are a great strategy to use. Remember, as the adult, that you're in the circle, right? We're not standing in the middle of the circle or standing outside the circle, but we're in that circle with our youth. You can Google all kinds of great ways to do circles, and there's a lot that goes into them. I hope people have been incorporating these throughout the year. I think they're a great way to do things. And I always say, do more positive than negative, right? So a positive circle is a celebration circle. And I think if you follow a template like this, if you follow this, it's sort of like a lesson plan, right? Having a well-defined, well-planned out circle makes a big difference. Also, it helps you stay on track of time and all those kind of things, so you don't wander and get off track, because there's other things you got to do during the day. If you look at this, you have an opening. What is going to get everyone started? This is a celebration circle. So what is it? It could be a song like celebrate good times. Come on, like whatever you guys want to do, right? You could have something to open it up. If you want to use a talking piece, if that's something that's already part of your culture in your classroom, then use it. If not, then maybe not. Check in, see how everyone's doing right now. Then you can check that energy level, like fist to 5. What's your energy level right now, everybody? Right, and you can get a good check. What are the guidelines in the circle? This is an important one. Right? Only one person speaks. We don't talk over each other. All voices are heard, like those kind of things. And again, you can look online for a lot of resources around this. The discussion rounds are your meat. So what are you actually going to ask them? What kind of things do you want to celebrate? You don't have to do all those things we just said, like, you know, the community, the SEL, whatever it is, but think about what really you want to help these kiddos celebrate and you want to celebrate. And that's your discussion rounds. And get a quick checkout. How's everybody feeling? We all happy about the year? You know, thumbs up, middle down, and then something to close. All right, so I'm going to give you like 5 minutes. I just want you to go through this outline right here and write some stuff down. Okay, because this could be a really good strategy for the end of the year. And it doesn't matter what setting, you know, because everyone's transitioning, and it seems like this time of year there's a lot of transition for sure. So how do you celebrate what's already been going on so that you can move forward? All right. Look at this outline, try to put as much as you can, and I'll get some people maybe to share out a little bit since we got a small group. So take 5 and just do that. Okay, let's finish up that last thought. All right. So even if you don't have a lot of experience using circles, this is like an easy one to start with. And like I said, the best way to get started with circles is doing positive things with circles. So morning check-ins or content related or celebrating. It's a great way to get started with them. Does anybody have a good opening that they would like to share? How would you open the circle about celebrating the year's learning? If you don't want to speak, you can put it in chat too. What's a good way, do you think, you could open it?
Maybe asking like, what's one thing you know now that you didn't know the beginning of the school year or something? Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's a great question to ask. You might find that might be a good discussion round, number 5, like one of the questions you want to go around your circle with even. You can open with that too, but those are also good discussion rounds for sure. So that opening is just kind of someone to get people in the mindset. A lot of times what I've done in openings is just a mindful breath activity, something like that. With younger kids, a piece of chocolate and you do mindful eating and mindful tasting where they just kind of chill out and taste the chocolate or something like that. Depends on what you do in your classroom, but that's just to kind of get people ready to go for the circle. Has anybody here used the talking piece and maybe has any suggestions or ideas of how they use the talking piece in the circle? Yeah, like icebreakers. I saw that icebreakers are great for openings. So if you want to use a talking piece, just make it part of your culture of your classroom or your group or the community you're doing. And then that talking piece signifies that everyone has a responsibility to listen to the person with that. It's not like a power trip, right? Like now you will listen to me because I have this talking piece, whatever that is, a stuffed animal, whatever it would use. All right, check-ins. Anybody come up with a good check-in question that they might ask to get things rolling? Like an SOS, what's your stress level type thing, range right now, and what's your control, stuff like that, that.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just to check in with them and see what they're doing. That you can kind of figure out how you want to work with this circle. How's everybody's doing? Like maybe everyone's really tired. So maybe the circle is we're standing up and we're not sitting down. That's just why. It's just kind of a temperature check thing. I want to skip down to the discussion rounds. What are some of the things that you would do to celebrate the learning? What are some things you would talk about as a circle? You can do those, you can do them in order where you just go around and order the circle. You can popcorn those. You can use the talking piece. There's different methodologies for getting everyone to participate in circle. But what are some discussion rounds you'd ask to get kids to share about their learning and celebrating it? Don't make me talk. It's in the afternoon. It's May. I'm tired. I got y'all. Well, roses and thorns, right? Like we kind of demonstrated one. That's an easy, those are rounds you could do. What are your roses? What are the things you want to celebrate? What is your favorite thing, of school this year? What was something that was hard that you struggled with that you could do? What are you most proud of this year in your learning? So there's a lot of cool things you could do with a circle. If you had your kids, I know there's a lot of projects out there, like kids making their own portfolios or something like that. I mean, you can do those in circle. What did you learn from making your portfolio? What did you see from, the progress that you've made? All those kind of things are great in a discussion round to celebrate. But I think it's really important that we do start off and make sure that we celebrate with our kids in the classroom, all the good stuff that they've done. That's going to help with the goodbyes. And that's what we're here to talk about, is how are we going to say goodbye at the end of the school year? Okay. And we also know that not all our kids are always going and back to good environments. And it's not always a celebration that's the end of the school year for some of our kiddos. Okay. So I think we got to really be smart and talk about that and try to prepare them for those things. There might be some things happening during the summer that we want to try our best to prepare them for. Thinking about when they've had some struggles or some conflict or things like that during the school year, what strategies did they use? We want to try to give them some confidence that they've done this before. I guarantee you there's been conflict. There's been things happening throughout the school year. If not, I don't, that's crazy if that happened in a classroom full of kids, if that never happened, right? So let's talk about it and let's get kids to uncover all the great things they've done. Because then in the face of adversity, right, these kiddos have naturally done some of these things. You've taught them some things as the adult, they've learned some things. So let's think of the positive ways that they've coped with difficulty and let's have them recognize that. So as they go out there, as they leave you and this building full of trusted adults, and if they're going to different environments than that, then they have some skills and strategies, right? I know that was one thing I was always concerned about. I think a lot of people are. All right, so I want to practice this. And we can share this in the chat, but we know right now, I said this before, that educators are the most stressed profession in the US. Educators have been the most stressed profession in the US since 2017. That was pre-pandemic, right? That's what the researchers very clearly said. It's a very hard job. And so you've had to overcome adversity. What was one effective way you overcame some tough times that happened this school year? Put that in the chat. And then everyone could see like some strategies that you use to do that. Yeah, finding positive peers. I had a good colleague of mine always talk about like the half sandwich rule. You heard that? If it's on your lunch break, you're sitting down and eating lunch and you can vent for a half sandwich. But if you start to go for your whole sandwich of venting, there might be some, you might need to find some other strategies, because then things are really getting to you. What else? What other some strategies? Come on now. What are some ways that you dealt with the difficulties? Awesome. I love that. Oops, sorry. Getting outside, you can do things together, right? Like we got into this profession because we loved being around kids and haven't seen that joy. So let's go have some fun with them. That lifted me up. I know when I was an administrator, I would get just overwhelmed, and I'd go into my SSN room and I'd say, what do you need help with? How can I help with whatever you're doing? And it would just bring me joy, and then I could go out and face the rest of it. Love it.
Breathing techniques, great mindfulness strategy, and great for kids to know too. Do you teach that to them?
Yeah, that's huge.
I was feeling stressed yesterday, and I took some time just to break and not think about anything, and just said, okay, I'm ready to go again. So that's great, the breathing.
Getting a pet.
Go Noodle games, getting a pet.
Go Noodle. Love it. There's all kinds of good ways. So good. So I think it's a really good thing to help our kiddos go through too, and identify some of these things and the ways that they did that, right? How did they overcome the conflict on the playground when they didn't want to share the jump rope, or whatever? Someone spilled their milk on them, and all these things. They have practiced, they've used some skills. So help them recognize those, because they're gonna, some of them more than others will need those over the summer. So this is what it really is when you get down to the meat of saying goodbye. For some kids, it's grieving, it's loss. And I can tell you, this isn't just students with adverse childhood experiences and impacted by trauma, right? And my daughter, who I say has emotional superpowers, she is very much the empath. She very much feels every emotion so very intensely. And when she was younger, it was very hard for her, and it's very overwhelming. And we had to do a lot of work at the end of school around grief and around loss. She was the one kid in K through 5 that cried at the end of the school year leaving. And it was just because of so much emotion, it was so tense that there was no other release for her, but that it was a lot, and we'd have to process, and we'd have to talk about this, and we had to talk about, how do you accept that this is the end of this school year, but we're moving on? This, if anybody's been in grief counseling or been in that kind of work at all, I was on our crisis response team in our district for when really horrific things happen, like shootings or school suicide or student suicides or something like that. We'd go in and do counseling, and it's all about the sequence of events that happen for people, not in order, but how do we help our students at the end of the school year kind of follow the same thing? How do we get them to accept that the finality, like this is the end of 3rd grade, right? All those feelings are okay. They're important. How do we work through those feelings? And I know sometimes for us, it's hard. Like my daughter, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. It was always very hard for me to be in a room and people are crying or very emotional, because I get very emotional too. So thinking about that when you're with your students, it's okay, right? I think it's okay to be vulnerable with them and do these things with them. When we talk about addressing their fears, I think this is a really positive thing we want to do with our kiddos. Okay, now we have to be smart about these if we're doing that in circle, or how we're doing this with them. You want to have the resources ready to go for that next step. A kid identifies something, and you're a mandatory reporter, right? And you have to be able to show that student to more supports, or get that student more supports than you have right now. And they've said something that was really concerning. So just be prepared for that. Because that'll happen, and it's better to be prepared and nothing happen than not be prepared and be surprised. But when we address them, be vulnerable, like, hey, I'm worried about you guys after school, or or if it's a one-on-one conversation, make sure that you're, like I said, you're well regulated, ready to handle all these emotions, acknowledge them with yourself and your students, how things are going to be different, the good things about it, the things that might be difficult. Okay, sugarcoating it's not going to help anybody, right? There's just some things that we got to address, and we got to help our kiddos through. Try to help them identify maybe some other trusted adults. You're not going to be available over the summer, right? If you're a teacher, classroom teacher, help them identify what are some other positive people in your life. What are some of the adults in your life, other resources that you can contact. Get them a plan, get that ready for them and in their mind, so they know they have that at their disposal. Okay. And like I said, If you need to do something, you need to do a mandatory report of something, then make sure you know your district's policies and procedures for doing that. That's going to be very important. And yes, circles. I love them. And I think they're a very versatile strategy. I would like you to think about all the stuff that we talked about. So we talked about celebrating, right? Like, let's celebrate all the good things, all the learning, all the positive things. But also, let's help our kids process the grief, process the loss, because that's important too. Might not be in the same circle. Maybe you want to do those separately, but maybe, maybe you do. Maybe that's how you run your classroom, and you do a lot of this. But thinking through this, just take a moment to reflect and think about, how could I start a circle? How could I have a classroom discussion around these things, helping kids talk about things and open up and share? Okay. Now you have on these sorts of harder conversations, we have to be very thoughtful of that. Maybe not every kiddo wants to share. Okay. So one of the when you look at guidelines and values of circles, when you're speaking, it's a voluntary thing, right? It's not a mandatory. I don't have to tell my deepest, darkest secrets in circle. That's not fair. That's not cool. That's traumatizing, right? So if a kiddo says skip a question or they don't want to talk about it, that's great. Maybe take note of that. And maybe that's a follow-up conversation you have on a one-to-one. Hey, Johnny, I noticed in circle you didn't want to share what you're scared about it by the end of the school year. Is there anything you want to talk to me about? Or would you like to talk to Mr. Heel, your counselor, or anything like that, right? Those are those things. But what I have seen too many times is the unwillingness to have these conversations because we're more scared of what we might find out, or what our next steps, or the responsibilities that we might have to have as adults. So we avoid those tougher conversations. And I would say that we don't want to do that, right? Part of healthy goodbyes, part of making sure we're sending our kiddos off is doing some of this. And I get it. It's the end. It's May. Like, it's the end of the school year. Like, are you kidding me right now? I'm emotionally done. And I get that. So whatever you need to do for yourself to prepare yourself to be emotionally ready to do this and have a conversation, that's going to be probably the most important thing of all of this. But think very, very consciously about, what kind of discussion rounds do you want to use? What kind of questions do you want to ask that are going to help people share? Again, this might be something where we talk about, let's think of one time we had, and maybe it's a little not as scary, right? Maybe one argument you had with a friend this year. How did that feel, and how did you get through it? Okay. And you start that way to open up the conversation about identifying some of the struggles they had and their emotions. What is, as we're going through it, like, how are you feeling about the end of the school year? And you're going to get kiddos that are like, I'm so excited, I can't wait. Right. And others that don't. And just be aware, right, of all of our learners, all of our kids, right? If you have 5 kids that are like, I can't wait, I'm going to spend 3 weeks in Cancun. And you got Johnny over there like, that isn't happening for me, man. Right? Be aware of the students and how that is going to impact them. So it's not just about like, because I think I see that a lot. What are you most excited about? I'm ready for a 3-week vacation in Fiji. Well, that's special because like all my parents are working real hard and I'm going to be watching TV. Like you know what I mean? There's a lot of other things that happen. So be smart about the questions you're asking about the end of the school year, what you're looking forward to. I mean, you can say like, guys, I'm not talking about vacations, but like, or any of that kind of thing, but are you excited about the end of the school year? Something like that. Just be wary of that. And maybe it's a check-in. You see a kiddo that really looks deflated after his buddy just says they're going to Fiji, and you're like, and that's a check-in. Hey, bud. Yeah, and I got you, man. I wish I was going to Fiji too. I don't get to do that either, right? Just don't be afraid to have those conversations. Okay. All right. Anyway, you'll have this slide presentation, so you guys can go through this. I'm not going to ask you to share all this thinking, but just think of it as a way to use a circle to talk about some of the tougher things that might be coming up for kiddos. Okay. It's a safe place, right? I'm worried, I could say, if I'm the circle keeper, if I'm the adult in the circle and facilitating, it's like, I'm really worried about some of you going home and not having, you know, this structure. I'm worried about some of you guys might not be reading at home and you're going to come back next year or not. I mean, you know, you can say some of those things to get started too. All right.
All right, so that was a lot, but we're going to keep going. And hopefully some of those tips that Zach gave can help you close out your school year and also even start your school year next year. Circles are a great way, like Zach said, to connect with students, establish new relationships, and get them going. So thinking about that, we're moving on to hopes and dreams for the future. So going back to our flower theme, what do you hope will blossom for next year? And what can you apply from the learning so far in this session, or thoughts that you've had, ideas that you yourself have used for next year or even over the summer? So 2 questions. Again, what do you hope will blossom for next year? And what can you apply from the learning so far? And we do have this breakout room set for 10 minutes. Zach and I are going to jump in. We consolidated the rooms because we have so few participants today into just 2, so that hopefully you guys can connect and talk more together. But as we're in the breakout rooms, Zach and I may say, okay, we're going to stop a little sooner. We'll just monitor how the discussion's going. So again, what do you hope will blossom next year, and what can you apply from the learning so far? So Katie's going to start our breakout rooms, and Zach and I will meet you in there.
Well, for Bear Hug Therapy, I am the new supervisor, right, for the social emotional department. So my hope is just to like use my time wisely and like learn everything I can, so I can become that person and help children in elementary schools with their social emotional abilities or lack of. And well, that's my main focus. Other than that, just improving my delivery service, I guess I can say, like the way that they structured the circles. Like I feel like that's very important, because I already like asked my children, oh, how are you today? And, you know, I check in with my children. So maybe just create more like fun ways to like promote language like that with my preschool children.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we're like focused with our lesson plans, like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, but we're not taking the time to really hear each one. And maybe, you know, they're feeling sad, there's something's going on. And, you know, I think just taking a breather and trying to, you know, bring it like all in and taking that time to be like, you know what, he's probably not in the same level as him, or maybe, you know, I need a little bit more one-on-one, like Zach had mentioned. It's like, you might want to ask after the session, like, hey, are you okay? Like, is something bothering you? Because not all of them might want to say it in the group. So I think sometimes we're so rushed, you know, like we have to go to our next session and we forget about that. So like for me, that's one of the things I have to take in account, like, okay, we gotta like, you know, keep it in mind that, you know, we have to make sure that all our kiddos in our group are doing well and that they're able to express to the providers like how they're feeling and not always feel very rushed.
For me, my hope for Blossom of next year is to give that help that the kids need, because sometimes we might miss little things that we don't see that until it's brought up by other people. So just noticing the little details that they're presenting to us, or little things that we don't pay attention to because we think that they're little, but in reality they are big things. And then what can apply from learning so far is just like Nancy said, give that time to those little kiddos, that talk to them, pay attention to what they're telling us, what they're doing, even in their drawings, because even sometimes their drawings tell us a lot. And since we're just constantly on the go, we don't pay attention to those little details, and we might miss something that they're trying to tell us, but we haven't paid attention to.
And I think that's something great that we could implement, Carla, like at the last 5 minutes of the session. Let's do like some breathing techniques, or let's like stop what we're doing and let's, you know, try to see if we could give that individual, or like give some time before they leave the session, just to give them time to see if they do want to express to us like how they're feeling, their emotions. I think, you know, we want to start incorporating that more into our sessions. So I think taking that extra 5 minutes would be great if we could, you know, put it in our lesson plan.
Mm-hmm.
You can do quick things too, you know, just like those thumbs up, thumbs down, medium, or fist to 5. Like I used to just do those a lot. And because I would mark down, like I could see like a specific kid was like a 2, like, so fist to 5, how are we, you know, it was Monday, right? So fist to 5, how are we feeling after the weekend? And like, you know, 3 or 4 weeks and one kid's a 2 out of 5 at the same kid. That's like, for me, that was a huge warning sign. Like, what in the world? And that's this time to have it. And I didn't have to expose him. He didn't have to share. He didn't have to do anything. It was just a quick circle. And that's why I love circle. I just think it opens things up. Everyone's, and, you know, facing each other. And the more you do them, the more comfortable kids get. And you might find some that are really like, I don't know, they're nervous about doing it and they don't want to do it. And then as they see that it's safe and it's okay to share, and, you know, the adult makes sure everything's safe, you know, and that you're following the guidelines and the values, and you're holding kids accountable for when they maybe don't follow them, you know, I'm not saying punish, but you address it, right? So that the kids know, like, oh, see, even if someone interrupts me while I'm trying to talk, you know, Mr. Hess is going to, you know, nicely say, hey, remember, we're one person talks at a time, you know, whatever those rules and guidelines you have. But it just becomes this really safe space for everybody, and you see them all, and you notice their affect. I mean, you guys are all with Bear Hug Therapy. You all in the same group?
The 3 of us.
That's cool.
McKinsey, we haven't heard from McKinsey.
Okay, that's great. But yeah, I mean, then that starts to be how you guys do business, you know, and you incorporate some of those things. It's really good. And do you do a lot of social skills stuff? Do you do like social skills groups and those kind of things in your work, or no?
We do a lot of our language based, but for instance, Brisa, we got a new contract for SEL. So we're going to be doing a lot of the SEL implementing. And so we're just trying to learn as much as we can, you know, to help the kiddos at the elementary school.
Oh, nice. Cool. Awesome. All right. I think we'll probably be done here pretty soon. I'll let them know. So, all right. Well, thanks for sticking in there, guys. I know it's hard, these webinars at the end of the day. Where are you guys in Texas? Is that where you all are, or where are you out?
In LA.
Oh, you're in
LA.
LA. Okay. Oh, so it's a little earlier there, but not much. Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. All righty. I'm going to leave the room, and I'll probably get everybody back.
All right, everyone. So thank you for looking forward to the future for next year. So now, how do we set the stage for next year? Here are some useful tips that I unfortunately have seen a lot of these simple ideas not get utilized, whether it's for time or not knowing or just thinking that the next staff will have the information at their fingertips. But some important things to keep in mind: you've gotten to know your students so well this past year, and what can you share to help them have a strong foundation with those that are going to be working with them next year? So thinking about maybe doing a summary of their strengths and their needs, what you found to be helpful, giving tips to your colleagues who will be working with them. And of course, making sure those IEPs, ALPs, 504s, any plan that they have, that their next teacher is not only aware of them, but maybe going deeper and saying, these accommodations worked, or this didn't work. This is what they used the most and relied upon. That helps your colleagues and the students be set up for success at the beginning of the year. Some ways that I did this when I was a teacher, and even as a director, I'd arrange formal conversations. So as a special educator, I would sit down with the 5th grade teacher who was sending my 6th graders on to me. We'd schedule a couple hours at the end of the school year. Both of our principals would gladly give us a sub for those couple of hours to talk about the students that she was passing on to me. And then I would do the same for my 8th grade students who were going to high school. The other thing that I used to do, I would do summarizing documents if I couldn't get to everyone, or to be able to pass out to their general education teachers for the coming year. And another great way is student generated. You can even give them prompts of what was your favorite things to learn? How do you like to learn? What are some ways that you struggle? What are some things that your future teacher can be aware of or avoid for you? And they can write that. And sometimes that's even more powerful than you as a teacher. A combo of both is excellent. I also would save my students' work, some of it, good and struggles, and put together a portfolio to pass on to that next teacher or group of teachers, so that it wasn't the student starting from ground zero completely, and or those teachers having to start all over. And of course, those matriculation meetings, like I talked about, meeting with the teacher prior that had those students prior, so that you can pass along, and then meeting with those that they're going to, so that they can understand too. So those are just some tips for setting the stage and setting students and their future teachers up for success. And then summer resources. Oftentimes, we think a student is going to be relieved to be out of school, but many of our students come from families that have a lot on their plates, and things like learning loss, food insecurity. Do they have an adult with them for supervision? Are they going to be home alone? What are some healthy activities they could be doing? I know Brisa, you talked about taking students outdoors. Are the students planning to be outdoors? Do they have ways to get outside or to interact with other people rather than just sitting at home alone playing video games? Do they have food at home? Maybe, I know for a lot of the students I worked with, their only meal they had during the school year were those that they got during the school day. And then of course that mental health support. What might they need over the summer to maintain skills that you've taught them? Or even when faced with adversity, what can they do? Are there resources that they can access? So take a moment and think about your current students and families. What might they need? And we're going to go into one more breakout. And I want you to think about, what does your district or school do to support students and families over the summer? So some examples of what our current district does that my students reside and go to school in is they send out newsletters at the end of the year with links to resources, and they have different newsletters and or different portions of the newsletter to label if a family needs food, where they could go, if they need mental health support, where they could go, if they need childcare, where they could go. That's one way. But what are some other ways that you or your district support families? And if you don't right now, what are some ways you might do so? So we're going to just spend about 4 minutes in this breakout room sharing out these ideas.
And have access to, mental health, and also like access to food. So that's what we have. In terms of what Mr. Hio mentioned about the newsletter, we send those regularly throughout the year, but I think we can definitely incorporate it for the summer and just add those extra supports, or send those extra information to our parents, so that they're aware of like what are services out there that they can like get access to.
I gotta say, I'm not sure that I know in my school also like have some summer package for specific subjects and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if they have some enrichment program during the summer or something like that. Correctly they have it, but I don't know during the summer if they have something like that. I'm not aware of that. So
Are you in a large district or a small district, or what's the size of your district, Monica?
uh, I would say I'm in a Catholic school in New York, so Queens. I work part-time in both schools, so
Okay.
Queens and Brooklyn. So I don't have too much knowledge about that. I gotta say the truth.
Our actual school is tiny, but as far as the Catholic schools, there are a lot of them in New York, in Queens, Brooklyn, Queens, that we fall underneath.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. I had said when, I think before you got in that, our school does a lot of, here's your ELA work, here's your summer work. And I'm sure the principal sends out newsletters to them during the summer, but we're fortunate enough that we work in districts where, or at least we don't see the need to send out those resources that Ms. Trulio was saying before. But I thought like maybe that might be something that we should think about putting out there, because we don't know, not everyone is, forthcoming and says when they have an issue or something's come up. Family situations change. So maybe that is just something we should start adding in, to our summer routine.
Yeah. I mean, the district that Donna and I are both in, we're very affluent, and you wouldn't think there was a need, but that's the thing, is like that if you just looked at it like that, then you wouldn't think there is. And there's actually a really big need. We actually have over 500 homeless, students and stuff like that. So there's more need than we think. And so it is, you just never know,
That makes me second guess, because the school I'm at too is very affluent too, but
Yeah, we wouldn't have known, but that's kind of the work we do. So we know what those numbers are, and you're like, oh,
It's interesting. It's eye-opening.
It is. All right. See you back in the big room.
So, end of year self-care. We all know it's crazy this time of year, and we also have to remember to take care of ourselves. And so Zach did some great pictures here of just ways that you can do that, and you might enjoy that. The one on the left is actually our restaurant that my husband and I own together. So thanks, Zach. Yeah, lots of people coming in for some self-care every now and again, especially during these hard times. Lots of customers saying how stressed they are, whether they're in schools or outside of schools. That change of seasons also can affect us. We were going through cold, and now we're getting warmed up. And like Zach said earlier, up and down weather patterns and the barometric pressure can change our moods easily too. So it's important to keep self-care. You go on a walk, you wake up in the morning and enjoy a cup of coffee before the rest of the house gets going. I even learned a strategy of when I'm brushing my teeth, just feeling how the toothbrush feels on my teeth rather than making it just another step in my day, and it can calm you. So thinking about your self-care, feel free to put in your chat box any ideas of how you are going to take care of yourself the remainder of this school year and do a restart for the summer. Are you going to travel? Do you have exciting plans with your family or friends? Or are you just going to shut yourself off to the world and read those books that you didn't get to all year? What are you going to do, Zach?
I'm going to go to lots of lacrosse tournaments. No, yeah. I don't know. I think making an effort to connect with people and stuff, I think that's a nice one. And that's one thing, even the traveling and doing, go to lacrosse tournaments and stuff. You got a good set of parents and you got a good set of people, and you just connect. And that's a huge stress reliever, I think.
For sure. Anyone else? You feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat.
I think for me, we've made an effort to actually plan our road trip this year. I think it's the last time we did a road trip was like 12 years ago. Wow. So it's been a long time. And I feel like every year I'm so stressed. I'm like, I want to stop that. It's like I have to. So I'm like, I don't care what we're going to do, but we're going to leave at this date. If we're ready or not, we're just going to leave. But yeah, for sure. And we already planned out even for next year, our vacation. So I'm like, okay, that's what we have to do. You know, I mean, there's always going to be work, but our mental health is very important. I'm like, I just need a break.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to go, like you said. Just pick up and go, and you may not be ready, or you may be worried about something going wrong while you're gone. But you know what? It usually works out, and if it doesn't, you can always fix it when you get back. So here's the feedback survey. You can use the QR code, or Katie has dropped it in the chat. Our team is planning for forums next year and would really appreciate your feedback on topics that you want more of. We will be meeting in June to plan out those sessions for next year. So it is so lovely when we get that feedback from you all, and also to know how we're doing with these forums and if there's different ideas that we can do to make them better for you. We're always looking to improve. And like I said earlier, once you fill out that survey, you can then, we'll get your email, we'll get you all the resources, including the recording for within the next week, and your certificate. So what do we do at GSN? We help you. So if you have strategies, or with those hopes that you have for your students for next year, we'd love to be able to help you. Here at GSN, we get grant and private donor funding for schools and districts for anything they need. And we go out and deliver the professional development. We'll help with curriculum. We'll help you, we'll coach, mentor, and train. And we're along there with you, not doing for you. We're there to do for you, but not do to you. So if you have anything that you have questions on, or would like to learn more, or bring a program to your school, here's our contact information. We would love to work with you. I know after our last forum last month, we did have a partnership occur from it. Someone emailed us saying they were looking for restorative practices training. Now, guess what? We've found grant opportunities for that organization and are hopefully going to be able to go out and help them. And it's all the way in Philadelphia. We'll go anywhere. Just let us know how we can help you and keep our contact information. Also, if you have something that you're struggling with and you need advice, Zach and I are here. And if we don't know the answer, we have others in our organization who do.
For sure.
Yep.
Many smart
and
people.
So we thank you for joining us today and taking your time out of the busy end of your school year. And we'll be posting our forums as we get them worked out for next year. So we are excited to join with you again next year. And also, you can always look at our website, generationschools.org. All of our previous forums are available there under SEL and resources. And then there's also some grab and go activities for you to use, as well as our team's contact information. And Zach, Katie, and I will hang out for a bit. If you have any questions, we're here to help.
Thanks for hanging with us this whole time.
Yeah, thank you. And for interacting.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all your help that you provide.
Thank
you.
Thank you all.